Oh yeah, Deadpool. I love Deadpool. And I fucking hate what Daniel Way did to his character. If you don't know who Deadpool is, then I don't know, I guess you've been living under a rock. Since he's gotten pretty goddamn popular. I'm talking nearing Wolverine levels of popularity in the 80s and 90s popular. So I'm just gonna kind of assume that you know who Deadpool is. Not necessarily his whole backstory or anything, just he's a guy who makes jokes sometimes and wears a red suit. So, released in 2013, written by Gary Dugan and Jolly Red Giant Brian Posehn, with art by Tony Moore, this is Deadpool Dead Presidents. The book opens up with a man thinking, "My country's falling apart. It's divided and my fellow Americans are at each other's throats. Suffering abounds. I'm powerless to stop it, but I can bring back the men that can save us from ourselves." Cut to Independence, Missouri. 24 hours ago, a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent necromancer with a kilt and the American flag on his face named Michael is performing a ritual to resurrect Harry Truman when Cap's shield slams into his back, breaking it and leaving him paralyzed for the rest of his life. The end. So Cap grabs his shield back and yells at Michael to stop what he's doing, but suddenly, the undead body of Harry S. Truman comes back to life and says he's going to destroy the country. Cap demands Michael send Truman back, but Michael just freaks out and says he can't and teleports himself away. The next morning on a S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier, S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Preston is getting chewed out by her boss about the happenings the night before, and her superior, Agent Gorman, tells her to solve this mess quietly, and then he flies away when Agent Scott Adsit, based off of actor and comedian Scott Adsit, runs up and tells her that FDR is terrorizing Manhattan. And Preston's like, nobody even remembered it was my birthday today. What else could go wrong? Cut to West Broadway in Manhattan. A giant four-armed monster destroys the place when suddenly a katana cuts from inside it and Deadpool emerges victoriously. Also, Thor's there. Then a big crowd of people race past him and a firefighter runs up and tells him to get moving before he notices how fucked up Deadpool is. But Deadpool moves his arm back into place, stuffs his intestines back in, vomits, and is like, "I'm all good." Then FDR rolls down the street screaming. Deadpool unloads on him with some Uzis, but FDR headbutts him into the subway. Deadpool lobs him into a passing train, and FDR explodes in death lightning. Then Preston, Adsit, and some other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents come down the stairs to secure the scene, and Deadpool's like, "Hey, is this because I hopped the turnstile? Because I have a very good explanation." Preston asks where FDR is, and Deadpool tells her that he had a train to catch. Then, FDR shoots his weird lightning and says, "You have nothing to fear except me." Wow, I can't believe it took them 5 pages to do a nothing to fear joke. Deadpool stabs FDR with his katana, and then FDR shoots out, blue lightning or something, and explodes, sending Deadpool to fly back to Preston and Adsit. Preston then offers Deadpool a job of hunting down all the resurrected presidents. And Deadpool's like, "I'm so honored you choose little old me. You like me. You really like me." And Preston tells him that the only reason they chose him is because America's heroes can't be seen fighting dead presidents. And Deadpool's like, "Hey, it still feels good to be part of the team." Later, Deadpool is infiltrating Liberty Hall, and he busts the door down and to find all the undead presidents and Jimmy Carter hanging out partying like crazy. I'm talking Gremlins level party. Then Abe Lincoln shoots Deadpool in the head and is like, "Yes, I've always wanted to do that." They all cheer, and Washington's like, "I propose we destroy America and start over. All in favor, say aye." And then all the presidents unanimously shout aye. Cut to Wade lying on the beach in a Deadpool brand Speedo, wondering why his head hurts. But suddenly, Sue Storm in a bikini appears, and she's like, "You got shot in the head by Abe Lincoln? Here, have a beer." And then Emma Frost appears on the other side and starts flirting with Wade. And then they catfight over him. And then fucking Dazzler appears, but she's kicked into the ocean by She-Hulk. And She-Hulk picks up Deadpool and is like, "Come on, who needs these over-sexualized fantasies? You need a strong, smart, fun, attractive? You need a smart, fun, attractive woman." And then she kisses him. I mean, come on, really though? Who wouldn't choose She-Hulk over Sue Storm, Emma Frost, and Dazzler? She-Hulk's fucking awesome. She broke the fourth wall way before Deadpool. Then Deadpool is awoken by the ghost of Benjamin Franklin. Ben tells Wade to calm down and explains that through his experiments, he was able to turn himself into pure electricity or something. And now he's a ghost, and that usually hangs around at Independence Hall. Cut to a military graveyard. Washington and Reagan are strong-arming Michael into resurrecting an undead army, but Michael tosses Reagan away and lights Washington on fire with his mouth and runs away and pulls a giant tome out of his kilt. And he passes by this old couple that are walking through the graveyard at the dead of night. That's weird. That's very suspect of them. But he tells them to run away, and then he turns around immediately, and Washington and Reagan have grabbed the couple and tell Michael to come out of hiding or else they'll kill them. So Michael comes out and brings the entire cemetery to life. Back at Independence Hall, Deadpool's wringing out his mask of blood, and he calls up Preston and tells her that he's lost the presidents. Preston's annoyed, and Deadpool's like, hey, it's not so bad. I mean, Ben Franklin's here. Preston then orders Deadpool to wait for transport, because he's going to Los Angeles to stop Teddy Roosevelt from continuing his big game hunting. Cut to the Los Angeles Zoo. Teddy Roosevelt is hunting a bear, and then the bear knocks his double barrel out of his hand, so Teddy just uppercuts it. Meanwhile, in the skies above LA, Deadpool jumps out of the back of a plane and lands in the meerkat exhibit. Then Deadpool sneaks up behind Roosevelt and asks him what he's doing, and Teddy's like,
"Oh, not much, just hunting some alpacas and camels. What are you up to?"
"Oh, I'm just here hunting wabbits and dead presidents, blam!" Then Teddy punches Deadpool somewhere else in the zoo, and when he lands, he runs into Ben, who is there hitting on women. But suddenly, an elephant impales Deadpool with its tusk, and Roosevelt starts shooting at him, but he hits the elephant in the ear, and then Deadpool shoots Teddy and makes a Mad Max reference. Then Deadpool sploops himself off the tusk and kicks Teddy in the face. Teddy kicks Deadpool in the stomach, but is grabbed by the elephant's trunk, and Deadpool punches him in the dick. Then Deadpool grabs a power cable from a nearby electrified fence and pulls an Edison on Roosevelt and the elephant, blowing him up. Preston and Adsit show up, and Deadpool's like, so should we talk about the elephant in the room? 'Cause it's on fire. Cut to Manhattan. Deadpool, Preston, and Ben show up at the Sanctum Sanctorum. And later in the Sanctum, everybody is chilling, and Wong serves them some tea, while Deadpool finishes bringing Strange up to speed. Also, only Deadpool can see Ben. Strange tells them that he won't help him find and capture Michael, and he's like, this shit is beneath me. I'll show you whatever the fuck you want, and then Wong's kicking you out. And then he opens his third eye and sees Michael resurrecting the presidents. And he says that Michael is playing with forces that he doesn't comprehend for unknown reasons. And Deadpool asks where the hell Michael is, but Strange says necromancy is fucked up and a lot like Pet Sematary, and he'll need to meditate to find him. Meanwhile, at a dentist's office in suburbia, Washington, Lincoln, and Ford are there discussing what they should do, since the president alliance they have is really disorganized. And Lincoln brings up Reagan's plan, which is to get a spaceship. And Ford's like,
that's insane! America doesn't even have a space program.
Then Washington orders Michael to get up, and in New York, Dr. Strange says he's found him. And before they teleport away, he says, oh, Mr. Franklin, I haven't forgotten that you slept with my girlfriend. You can walk. Back at the dentist, Ford is punching Michael as Deadpool shouts, hey George, guess what time it is? 2:30! And socks him in the face, twisting his head completely backwards. Dr. Strange says for the presidents to leave this realm on their own accord or else, and Preston tells them that it doesn't have to get violent, to which Deadpool quickly replies, hey, she's just kidding, of course it has to get violent, and opens fire on Abe and Ford, while Strange grabs Michael and Washington grabs the tome. Meanwhile, Strange, Wong, and Michael are floating around in the astral plane. Michael asks if they're really there, if this is all a trick, and Dr. Strange makes an Arrested Development reference. Dr. Strange then has Michael tell him how he acquired his powers. Flashback time! When Michael was a kid, his hamster died, and then later that night it came back to life. And Strange is like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. Surely you were trained somewhere or studied somewhere, right? And Michael's like, oh yeah, I was recruited out of college by S.H.I.E.L.D. Then Strange exclaims, by the hoary hosts of Hogarth, I thought you got that overcoat at a Goodwill. Meanwhile, Preston and Deadpool are fighting Washington, Lincoln, and Ford when Preston calls in backup, and Lincoln shouts, if you don't die, then we'll make your life a never-ending torture. To which Deadpool responds, where have you been? My entire existence has been torturous. This mask doesn't just cover up my face. It covers up my feelings, damn it. And you don't scare me, you half-shaved yeti that got killed by an actor? And Lincoln shouts, proof had the drop on me, and picks up Deadpool and launches him through a nearby smart car. Ford starts strangling Preston, but Deadpool grabs him and tells Preston to run. And as she does, she tells him that she'll be back with more firepower. Then Washington tells his buddies to let Preston go, and that they don't need Michael anymore. Then they crush the car in on Deadpool, and Washington stabs him with his sword. Then Ford kicks him into a building. Then a helicopter piloted by John Adams and John Quincy Adams lands, and Nixon steps out and says,
Wait, I recognize this place. It's Watergate, where it all went wrong. You boys go without me. I've got unfinished business. Ahoo!
And Ford's like, okay, and turns around to run to the helicopter, but falls in the tail rotor. So they leave. As Deadpool finally gets up, Doctor Strange shows back up, and Ford's legs stumble around. Strange rips the sword out of Deadpool and goes into a big bubble and meditates on it, and Deadpool's like, oh boy, how I do love a magic show. And Wong tells him it's not a performance, but then Deadpool says, you know, I'm not a magician, but I did saw a woman in half one time. You know how to put them back together? And Wong's like, you're a terrible person. Then Michael tells them Nixon's being a real dillweed. So Deadpool fills him with bullets, but Nixon's like,
well, now see here, my fellow American.
And Deadpool tells him he's Canadian, so Nixon grabs him and tosses Wade into the Watergate. Nixon follows Deadpool into whatever, room he's in the Watergate, and he's about to beat him with a TV when Deadpool kicks him in his tricky dick. Then Strange shows up and is like, yo, special delivery. I enchanted the sword to work on zombies. Here you go. And Deadpool proclaims the sword's name to be Vito, the magic sword. Then he stabs Vito into Nixon, causing him to explode. Later outside Watergate, Strange tells Deadpool that swords usually have a woman's name, so Deadpool renames it to Nancy. But then Strange says he noticed something weird about Deadpool in New York, and he whispers something in Wade's ear, causing him to say, that's not good. Preston asks if he's okay, and Wade tells her that the doc was reminding him of his yearly mammogram. He then looks over to see Doctor Strange has disappeared. Cut to South Florida. A sexy seductress who looks vaguely like Marilyn Monroe sings Happy Birthday to JFK, who is there getting ready to reinvade Cuba so they can launch the missiles that they have at America. Marilyn walks over to him to reveal it's Deadpool in drag. He pulls his sword out from its sheath, and by sheath I assume it was probably his ass cheeks, and Deadpool asks where the shot came from as he stabs JFK. Then Deadpool kills all the goons. The next day, Deadpool is on the helicarrier eating a burrito when Preston tells him that Polk, Tyler, and some other D-listers are getting ready to bomb the Golden Gate Bridge. So, in San Fran, I wonder how those underground homeless people are holding up. Anyway, Deadpool shows up and says that he has about 6 pages to kill 10 presidents, and that it's time for a montage. Then Deadpool suggests that the reader listen to 5 Minutes Alone by Pantera. So, Deadpool leaps off the bridge and stabs Zachary Taylor, slices Polk's head, cuts Tyler in half, and completely mutilates Fillmore. Then he jumps off the bridge and breaks his body from the chest down as he lands on the S.H.I.E.L.D. plane. Cut to the Hoover Dam. Hoover, Coolidge, Harding, and Buchanan are arguing about who gets to blow up the dam when Deadpool shows up. He kills Coolidge, causing the 3 others to flee, but not before Deadpool puts all their TNT in the truck and they drive off the dam and explode, sending Deadpool to hit the S.H.I.E.L.D. plane like a bug on a windshield. Preston lets him inside and tells him that Andrew, Jackson, Van Buren, and Pierce are meeting with Lincoln and the Adamses at San Onofre. Deadpool asks if that's a mall or something, but it's actually a nuclear power plant. So inside San Onofre, Deadpool is driving a golf cart through the halls trying to find the presidents. Well, he does, and he kills Van Buren, Jackson, and Pierce, but is socked in the face by Lincoln, who shoots him in the head again. Then he flies away in the helicopter, but Deadpool is able to toss a cell phone aboard. Back on the helicarrier, Preston and Gorman discuss Michael while Ben listens. Preston says that he wants an old S.H.I.E.L.D. agent named Tango, and Gorman says that he doesn't buy the story and leaves. Then Ben tells Michael that the agents aren't believing him, so he says, "Agent Preston, I know you're there. The agent in charge of the side weapons program was codenamed Tango. His real name is Gorman." Cut to Las Vegas, Nevada, baby! At some kind of like MMA championship, Adrian Van Lundgren is celebrating when Abraham Lincoln enters and tells the stadium that they're all gonna die. Then Lincoln clotheslines Lundgren, and then Deadpool, Preston, and Ben show up. So, Deadpool climbs in the octagon with Lincoln as Preston orders an evacuation. And then, the main event of the evening! Our referee in charge, John Adams, and the Merc with the mouth at 6'2", weighing in at 210 pounds, presenting the challenger, Wade Wilson. And in this corner, a zombie standing at 6'4", weighing in at 180 pounds, the undisputed champion, Abraham Lincoln. The bell rings and Deadpool turns around and asks Preston and Ben and Lundgren, who climbed out, if they have any advice. Ben tells him to stay mobile, Lundgren tells him to just fucking give him hell, and Preston tells him that S.H.I.E.L.D. SWAT teams are inbound. Then Ben gets distracted by some hot women and Deadpool is clocked in the face. Deadpool's like, "Okay, lucky shot. You won't get me again." And then Lincoln asks if Wade ever shuts up, and Wade's like, "Actually, no, not really." And Lincoln uppercuts him into the lights, causing them to fall on the hot women Ben was ogling. And he shouts, "Kill that man, Deadpool! Kill him!" But Lincoln brings out the steel chair and beats Deadpool with it. And then he just beats the shit out of him and says, "You're a vapid, unfunny, pale shade of a hero. You're unintelligent, uncreative, and unremarkable. All you do is heal and appear everywhere. I don't understand your appeal." Whoa, jeez, calm down with the meta there, Abe. Abe asks what Deadpool is even good at, and Wade says, "I don't give up." "Psst, Ben, pass me my sword for God's sake, he's kicking my ass." And then Ben tries to grab him, but he's a ghost, so he's like, "Damn these ghost hands." So Lincoln just keeps beating Deadpool when Lundgren tosses Wade his sword, and Deadpool decapitates Lincoln and his presidential cohorts. But then, Taft crashes through the ceiling in his flying bathtub, grabs Lincoln's body and head, and fucking flies away on Sudsy. But on the upside, the entire stadium is now cheering, "Deadpool, Deadpool, Deadpool." But on the downside, the other downside, in space on a Russian rocket heading for the ISS, Reagan kills the other pilot and says, "I need something that the old Soviet Union left up here. I'm finally gonna play Star Wars, mommy." The next day in Vegas, Wade and Ben are walking through the parking lot when a little kid shows up and says that Deadpool is his favorite costume freak. Deadpool turns around and is like, "Yeah, whatever." Then Deadpool pulls a Mean Joe Green and takes his mask off and says, "Hey kid, catch," and tosses his mask to the kid.
Thanks, Mean Joe.
However, the mask hits the kid in the face, leaving Deadpool's blood all over this young hemophobic child's face. Hemophobia is the fear of blood. And then he runs away screaming. Then Michael runs up eating a hot dog and alerts them that Reagan is in space on some old weapons platform. Michael says that he can send Deadpool up there, but he can't bring him back. Wade asks if Ben wants to come along, but Ben's worried that space might fuck up his electricity ghost, so he stays. Then Deadpool is beamed up to an old Soviet space station, and Deadpool's in some bay with a bunch of chimps trying to figure out how to open the door when one of the monkeys points to a button, and Deadpool's like, "Oh, this button right here? Thanks, Buzz, old chimp." Then the monkey says, "Kill man." And all the monkeys attack Deadpool, and he keeps making Planet of the Apes references. Reagan investigates the ruckus and is like,
Darn, they weirdos here. Well, better get back to unleashing a nuclear holocaust. Doop-de-doop-doop-doo.
Deadpool enters the room and Reagan tells him that the launch can't be stopped, and then he attacks. Reagan knocks Nancy the sword away from Wade, so he just brings out his regular katana and stabs Reagan in the stomach, unleashing jelly beans. And Deadpool's like, what? Why are you still eating jelly beans? You're dead. And then he tries to eat one, but it's black licorice, and that's gross. Deadpool then takes control of the station and starts steering it into orbit so that it gets burnt up and destroyed before the missiles launch. Then Deadpool shoots Reagan several times, and Reagan says,
Sorry, punk, but just because you shot me doesn't mean you'll get to date Jodie Foster.
That's pretty funny. But then Deadpool says he was aiming for the wall behind Reagan, which he successfully hit several times. Then Reagan sucked through the hole like in fucking Aliens Resurrection. Deadpool retrieves Nancy and opens a big emergency locker to find, like a shitty jetpack thing, and then he falls through orbit and burns up. Later, at the helicarrier, S.H.I.E.L.D. is discussing the wreckage, and Deadpool tells him to stop bitching. Preston says that Deadpool did a great job, and as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, she exploits all available resources, and she needs to manipulate assets like Wade into doing what she wants. I mean, sure, S.H.I.E.L.D. pays a lot, but deep down, Deadpool does want to do good. And she's glad that he's doing the good thing. Deadpool's like, you know, the more you thank me, the less complimented I feel. Suddenly, Michael and Ben show up and congratulate Wade, but then the helicarrier begins falling, and Washington and LBJ show up. LBJ punches Michael on his ass, and Washington electrocutes S.H.I.E.L.D., and Deadpool's going to slice LBJ, but he catches the blade. So Deadpool just shoots him. Then Washington grabs Preston by the throat and says,
You're outmatched and outmaneuvered. Surrender immediately.
Deadpool stands down and says not to hurt her, and then Washington says,
Oh, I promise you won't feel a thing.
And snaps Preston's neck, and Deadpool grabs Nancy and slams the sword into LBJ, but Washington jumps in front of him and steals his katanas and slices Deadpool's throat. And as he's lying on the ground, Michael touches both Preston and Wade as he says a spell. Then Washington grabs his sword and says that the world will burn. Later, Deadpool wakes up in the National Mall in front of the Washington Monument. Michael tells Wade that Preston died and he completely bled out, and now Washington is using really powerful black magic and he resurrected an undead army. Michael and Deadpool run away to find a massive battle taking place between S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and I assume like other military branches, and the zombie army. Michael tells Deadpool that Washington is held up in a magical sphere in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Deadpool then asks Michael how Washington is doing all this, and Michael says, My magic book. I think I got it from a demon, and Washington might have been able to learn more from it than I was. And Deadpool's like, gee, keep up the good work, Mike. Then Taft and Abraquack Lincoln attack. So Deadpool blows up Sudsy, and Taft is about to crush Deadpool when he's caught on fire by S.H.I.E.L.D. in a piggy mech suit. S.H.I.E.L.D. tells Deadpool that the Avengers are inbound, and that Washington is inside the bubble with Eisenhower and Rutherford B. Hayes. Deadpool says that they're down 5 presidents, but S.H.I.E.L.D. tells him that Jefferson, Madison, and Harrison got ran over by a bus in New York, while Johnson and Grant died of natural causes in L.A. So Deadpool makes his way to the bubble and enters, and he's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. I don't see the And then he falls over dead on a pile of dead S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Then Deadpool dies and sees a woman in bright light. She puts her hand out to him, and he asks who she is. And she says, someone that loves you. And then he wakes up as the 3 presidents laugh at him. But he stands back up, and they're like, that's impossible. How is he still alive? Then Washington kills Hayes and Eisenhower to absorb their power. Deadpool says he's already won because he made it inside the bubble, and Washington doesn't have anything to protect him. Then he throws a grenade that doesn't really do anything. And Washington says,
You will have nowhere to go once I kill you once and for all. The only reason you made it this is because you're dead inside. There's nothing for a man like you. Nowhere that you belong.
Wade says that he used to believe that too, and then he steals Washington's sword and cuts off his hand and says, I don't know what's waiting for you on the other side, but you're about to find out. And Washington's like,
oh, let me guess. You have a joke about me being disarmed.
But Deadpool snarls, nope, no more jokes. My name is Wade Wilson, and you killed my friend. Prepare to die. And Washington punches Deadpool and asks what makes him so special. But Wade says he's just a man in the right place at the right time. And he cuts off Washington's other hand and his legs. Washington orders Deadpool to do it. So Deadpool starts ripping off his head and Washington's like,
ah, God, I bet with the sword.
And then Deadpool rips Washington's head off and screams, it's over. But then Washington's head appears as normal flesh and says,
thank you, soldier. I was trapped, forced to watch from inside my body. I thank you for ending this grotesque scheme. I truly owe you a great debt.
And Deadpool's like, yeah, you fucking do. And then he asks if Washington has seen the Lincoln Memorial and drop kicks his head over to it, causing him to land in Lincoln's crotch. Then Strange shows up and he's like, good job, bye. And then Gorman shows up and he's yelling, the whole thing turned into a crap show when you showed up. Preston was an idiot to trust you. Then Wade gets in his face and says he did everything he could, but then Gorman says Wade will not be paid. So Wade grabs Gorman by his dumb little mustache and says, I must ask you a question. Do you think it's good for your long-term health to make me an enemy? Pay me my money, or you'll do what? I'll kill you, starting with your dumb mustache! And then he rips off part of Gorman's mustache, and Gorman's about to start screaming at him when the Avengers show up, and they congratulate Deadpool. Deadpool, being a huge fan of Captain America, goes for a handshake, but Cap's like, look out, Deadpool. Don't worry, Mr. President, I'll fix you. Then Thor says, like, Deadpool's earned a cask of mead, and, like, everybody else leaves. Gorman and Deadpool threaten each other, but Adsit drags Gorman away. Michael runs up and tells Deadpool that there's something really important he needs to know about. But Deadpool tells him to stop talking because his head hurts. Deadpool says he's all done, and he takes off his harness belt thing, and he sits in front of the Washington Monument as the sun rises, and says he just needs some peace and quiet. And then he tries to forget about how gross the reflective pool water is as he drinks it. When Preston's voice appears in Wade's head. And Preston asks what's happening, and she's like, where am I? I'm dead, aren't I? And then Deadpool looks at his reflection and smiles and says, oh, you're worse than dead. You're Deadpool. And Michael says that he needed somewhere to put her, and Wade had more than enough room. And Preston says, oh, hell no. I'm gonna kill that necromancer. The end.